This podcast is supported by Progressive, a leader in RV insurance. RVs are for sharing adventures with family, friends, and even your pets. So if you bring your cats and dogs along for the ride, you'll want Progressive RV insurance. They protect your cats and dogs like family by offering up to $1,000 in optional coverage for vet bills in case of an RV accident, making it a great companion for the responsible pet owner who loves to travel. See Progressive's other benefits and more when you quote RV insurance at Progressive.com today. Progressive Casualty Insurance Company and Affiliates. Pet injuries and additional coverage and subject to policy terms.
This is Marshawn Lynch. On Prize Picks, being right can get you paid. So I'm here to make sure you don't miss any of the action this football season. With Prize Picks, it's good to be right. With millions of members and billions of dollars awarded in winnings, Prize Picks is the best place to put your takes to the test. The app is really simple to use and available in 40-plus states, including California, Texas, and Georgia. Just pick 2 or more players across any sport. Pick more or less on their projections, and if you're right, you can cash in. With simple stats and fan-friendly policies, Prize Picks is the best place to make your picks. Most importantly, they don't play about your paper. All transactions on the apps are fast, safe, and secure.
Download the Prize Picks app today and use code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code SPOTIFY to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Our thing has always been like, well, we're not cool. We're never going to be cool. We're not even going to try and be cool. So what do we do instead? It's like, well, yeah, let's lay everything bare. It extends to so many things. Like, people are surprised when they see us like packing our own gear away. It's like, well, no, I want you to see that this happens. I'm not going to go off stage and wait until everyone's gone away. So you can imagine that we're backstage drinking champagne and hanging out with supermodels. And then we go out and, do the work. Or even worse, deliberately lose money because you have to employ someone to do the things you can't be seen to do. Like, madness. And I think that comes from like upbringing. My dad worked for a building company. My mum was a youth worker. My dad's thing was always, you don't ask anyone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And we are very much like that. We have very much taken that on. And I want people to see that. I'm totally fine with that.
I know you're in the Northeast. Which town specifically?
We are in Sunderland. And our studio is just on the edge of the town centre. Our first studio we set up with the Futureheads in 2001 in the spare room of a community centre.
Really? That's a sight, isn't it? So the two of you in and out there, practicing, going hard for it, drinking a few cans, playing a lot of music.
Oh, God, no. We've got a coffee machine, though. That was the important thing.
That's great. And so I think even to get to that level where you have a regular practice spot, you're already taking it quite seriously, right?
Yeah. It became really important to us really early on. We had our kind of first forays in the music industry way back in like 1999. Around, I was 18, 19. We were recording at home a little bit. But we wanted to make a real record. So it's like, okay, you go to a studio and you come away thinking, oh, that's not quite right. Maybe if we record ourselves and then get someone else to mix it. Oh, that's not quite right. Maybe it's mastering, and you pay however much it is for a day. And eventually
mastering. Yeah.
And eventually it was just like, you know what? We just need to do this ourselves. We have an idea of what we want it to be. So we're just going to have to get good at this. But the space, the original space that we rented, there were 8 of us sharing it. So it was the 3 members of Field Music. At the time, the other 3 members of the Futureheads, because my brother was the drummer in the Futureheads then. And a couple of other friends who made music. And we all paid like £32 a month for this space.
Yeah, and that was affordable?
Yeah, even then, with whatever part-time jobs we had at the time.
Yeah. That's the name of the game. And I started doing this show because, I grew up playing in bands. I put on a few gigs here and there, friends who are in bands. And it always struck me as Well, it's a complicated subject, right? Should one be able to make music for a living? I think yes, unequivocally yes. And who does become the headliner of the festival? Kind of anyone's game, right? It's a gamble. But the idea that artists would live a double life always struck me as kind of wrong, and I think it's sad because music does make the world a better place. People being able to create makes the individual and the community, a better group. And, it just never left me that idea of tension, that idea of the double life. And of course, speaking to you now is such a funny time to do it. It's 20 years of the debut album. And with the Fire Doors, the cover band that you announced a few weeks ago that kind of became news, I bet you weren't expecting that to blow up, were you?
No, I mean, I literally wanted to sell maybe like 10 or 15 tickets for our gig in Middlesbrough. That's all I wanted to do.
Yeah. And you've done more than that now.
Yeah.
And looking at the band, I mean, so you started around like 1999. Debut album, self-titled, came out in 2005. It's coming up to its 20th anniversary now. Over those 2 decades, you've had features and reviews in broadsheets, music magazines. You've been touring. You've been pretty prolifically producing albums. But you still need another job to make it work. Something's broken there, right?
I don't think that we're a good example of that, because the real reason we don't do better is because we make music so purely for ourselves, and our tastes in music are so far away from the mainstream or the zeitgeist that it's absolutely right and proper that we should be struggling artists. Obviously, it would be nice if we could have continued. So we would kind of do an okay for a while. Not great. We've probably never had a year where we've both made minimum wage. Probably never. But there was a period from 2010 where our records were selling. We do everything very kind of bare bones. We don't, because we do everything in-house, we don't have to we don't spend a lot of money. And we thought we'd kind of cracked it. The
self-sustainability of it.
Indeed. So like even at our level where we are literally just pleasing ourselves, we thought, yeah, we can continue to make this work. We've got our studio space. We can make as much as we like. All of our records basically are in the black, which is quite unusual, really.
Yeah. You're selling product.
Yeah. But as streaming has eaten away into physical sales, and as Spotify in particular has become has reshaped the whole music media landscape. It's not just the listening. It's a move away from albums and review culture to playlists, and that's just like cut into our tiny margin enough to make it so that like now we seriously have to think of some other solutions here.
You were never expecting to make a career out of it because you're playing music just for yourselves in a kind of in a niche sense. You're kind of making music that was kind of niche, even to yourself. Did that kind of fuel that? Because I suppose some people are making niche music, but they are really making a real living, making a good living out of it. I mean, all music is niche until some point, right? So I wonder if that idea kind of like sort of self-serves itself in a way, like, I'm not saying it's a good thing or a bad thing, but that idea of being like, well, we're always going to be starving artists, so that's just it.
That is a good question. And it's one with, I think, a myriad of answers, some of which are to do with, a niche that finds a wider niche, that finds that like that crack of coolness where enough people want to join in. And I think fundamentally, me and Peter are so not joiners in, and I think that comes through in our music. And that, like, to do something that's honest, that's the way it's got to be. That's the way it's got to be for us. We had our period where we were like a little bit closer to the mainstream. So when our first album came out, people paid attention to that, not really because of the music we were making, but because of our associations with the Futureheads and Maximal Park, who were like good examples of that mid-noughties bloom in British guitar music. We were not that, but we were mistaken for that enough that we did get some reviews and we did get some festival slots. And I don't know if we made the most of it because we weren't ready to. I mean, I see videos of us performing then, and it's so insular. We're just like, oh God, we're making this very complicated music and really concentrating and just absolutely in our own worlds and not projecting nothing to the outside world. And we've got better at that. But the fundamental reason that we were like that is still there.
Did you ever try and play the game? Because I often think, when you're growing up, you think, oh, that's not cool, I'm not going to do that. But if your mates are doing it, Maximo Parker and the Futureheads ostensibly were playing the game, whatever the game is, right? Going for meetings, saying yes to this, signing record deals, playing festivals. So your mates were doing it. And, I imagine you weren't thinking, oh, you guys are idiots, not going to be friends with you anymore, which is often the case in sort of tribalistic music. So did you ever play the game?
It's funny because we had our first music industry experiences a little bit before them, and we actually had some like kind of like we experienced the badness of it quite early on. So there was a music industry convention called In the City, which doesn't run anymore, but it was quite a big thing in the late 90s. It was like, Coldplay won it, and before they signed to AMI, and
it's a competition.
Well, they didn't present it as that, but someone won. And we did it in 1999. Had a disastrous gig. Like, couldn't believe it. Just like, this is horrible. But we won. Weirdly. And we only found out that we won because they'd left loads of messages on the hotel, because we'd gone out the next day, just like, we need to get this out of our heads. We're going to go and have a day trip to Chester. It was in Liverpool that year. And we got back to oh, you're supposed to be playing tonight as well because you won. And what happened after that was we had loads of attention really quickly. And once people realized what we were like and what music we wanted to do, all of that attention just evaporated almost immediately. Guess my first year of university, and I had like 3 weeks of phone calls from music business lawyers, and suddenly it was just like, oh God, you're that kind of person. Nothing. I was like, okay, from now on, let's just do stuff with people we really like.
Yeah.
So we were already like predisposed not to play the game then. When the Futureheads had signed to Warner's and Maximal Park were about to sign to Warp, we had a meeting with Maximal Park's managers, and they've been brilliant for Maximal Park, but we knew straight away this is not for us. Yeah. This is not for us. We're just dicks. We can't do it. We were really fortunate to meet the guys from Memphis Industries, and we met them because we were playing in the band of someone else on the label. We'd like forced our way into his band, and that's how we met the label.
Who was it?
The band.
Yeah, who was the person? Yeah.
So it was a guy called Pete Gofton who was making records under the name Jay Xavier then. So the drummer in Kaniki, he'd also had that kind of experience in the music industry where he started to make his own things, his own like weird, quirky things, and put out a single on Moshi Moshi and signed to Memphis, and then once people realized that he was just a weird guy making weird music, Memphis, put the record out, but the interest wider than that dissipated pretty quick. But he's from Sunderland, and we'd met him, and absolutely loved the guy, and thought, we can make your live band work. Just
do you think I'm butting in here? But do you think that it came as quite a surprise to a lot of these industry people that you and Pete were like, nah, we don't. We're weird people. We want to make weird music. Do you think they, looking back, do you think the A&Rs were surprised about that? Because it seems to be a real feeding frenzy.
I don't know. I don't know what else was going on at the time. I mean, I feel like the media environment for that stuff was quite different because there was that guitar music explosion, but it came off the back of that period where like the NME were mostly writing about Mercury Rev and Spiritualized and Flaming Lips and Smog.
So kind of weird bands, like almost sort of slantedly weird, but still indie rock generally.
Yeah, I guess so. But the first time I saw the Flaming Lips, it was Wayne Coyne with his little nun puppet and blood capsules on his head, and they didn't have a drummer, so they had the rest of the music on VHS, which played on a screen behind him. The first time I saw Smog, which was at Leeds Festival in maybe 2000, it was like, this guy who's like an icon now, but there were like 5 people in the audience watching him play, and it was me and Wayne Coyne.
You, Bill Callahan, and Wayne Coyne?
Yeah, pretty much.
Brilliant.
So there was still like that undercurrent where a certain amount of weirdness was accepted, indulged, was still there.
So then did that put you on a path of doing your own thing and understand it? Did you get quite quick at understanding how to do it? Because I think for anyone, the first few years of being in a band is probably a bit trial by fire. You're working out how to do it. I suppose at some point you level out and you can kind of see into the future a little bit more. You can see a few months ahead, for example. I think that's hard to do when you're just starting, but once you've been going a few years, you can kind of plot along and like plot 6 months, a year ahead.
Yeah, I mean, so for instance, we realized pretty quickly how we were going to have to tour because we did a tour supporting Maximo Park, like 6 dates across a week. We did it. We did our own gig on the day off, and our manager at the time organised the hotels and organised a van. And he said, "Don't worry, we won't get a driver. I'll drive, but you should take a guitar tech. So find a friend who can, tune your guitars and stuff." We lost £1,000 in a week. And we thought, we are never, ever doing this again. It took like 3 years to get into the black on that record because of that one tour. It's just like, right, we don't do that anymore. We drive ourselves. I'm going to book the hotels. We can find... we did loads of touring like in my dad's car, in my dad's estate. It's like, right, well... if we slot all the drums in together and there's only 3 of us in the band, we won't take sound engineer, we won't do any of that stuff. We can tour for petrol money and, like 20 quid travel lodge room as it was at the time. So yeah, we learnt that very quickly.
This is a conversation that people are talking about more and more. I mean, my show is dedicated to it, but you're seeing it in broadsheets, in sort of long reads. There's always a paragraph about how one of the players, does this for another job, does that for another job. Do you feel like you've been witnessing the kind of shift of the velvet curtain kind of being removed a little bit from media and from Spotify and Apple in the way that people talk about music? Was there a time that you wouldn't have spoken about this?
There probably wasn't a time when we wouldn't have spoken about it. I mean, like... Because the first time we had this kind of controversial thing was where Peter accidentally said in a Guardian interview, off the cuff, sometimes we just make $5,000 a year. And suddenly that was everywhere. And
so this isn't the first time something like this has happened.
So for us, it's different. But our thing has always been like, well, we're not cool. We're never going to be cool. We're not even going to try and be cool. So what do we do instead? It's like, well, yeah, let's lay everything bare. It extends to so many things. Like, people are surprised when they see us like packing our own gear away. It's like, well, no, I want you to see that this happens. I'm not going to go off stage and wait until everyone's gone away. So you can imagine that we're backstage drinking champagne and hanging out with supermodels. And then we go out and do the work. Or even worse, deliberately lose money because you have to employ someone to do the things you can't be seen to do. Like, madness. And I think that comes from like upbringing. My dad worked for a building company. My mum was a youth worker. My dad's thing was always, you don't ask anyone to do something that you wouldn't do yourself. And we are very much like that. We have very much taken that on. And I want people to see that. I'm totally fine with that.
What are some of the most interesting jobs that you've worked alongside doing the band? I feel like it's fertile ground being in a band for a bunch of odd jobs, some of which you would happily never see again.
Well, yeah, I mean, we haven't done a lot of like odd jobs while the band has been properly active. While we were making the first album, I worked in Oxfam's finance office in Newcastle.
Wow.
And then tried to train to be a quantity surveyor, following my dad's footsteps. But
the honourable thing.
Yeah, but I did maths at university. I'm really good at maths, and I think the expectation was that is a lot of what quantity surveying is about. But in maths at like degree level, it's about an accuracy. You don't estimate anything. And in the building trade, it's like you doing these sums is a waste of time. Just guess, and it'll be close enough. My brain just could not cope with that. It's like, but I haven't even done pi times the square root of whatever it is yet.
Yeah.
So yeah,
this is almost like reading The Private Eye. You'll always read about different councils just really fucking it up and just spending. I mean, what gets built in Britain that is the same or less amount that they say it's going to cost? Nothing. It's just fact.
Well, I am not going to relay that to my dad because he was very, very proud of his ability to come in under budget. But partly that was because that was the profit that their company made. It was like, if we actually do this under budget, then then the company survives for another year. But yeah, so I wasn't suited to that. Maybe more so the Oxfam finance office, because that was a lot of phoning the kindly grannies who were volunteering in the office and trying to persuade them to go and read their electricity meter.
Being good at numbers, did it not stress you out when you were doing band stuff and you're looking at how much money you're spending, how much money's coming in, and those two things maybe not adding up to a profit?
Not really, but what it has meant is that, like, in terms of the running of field music as a business, like that's my job, really. We sent in our VAT return yesterday, but that's great. That's my job. Peter's got pretty good at doing tour budgets, actually, but that's because his other job at the moment is teaching on a popular music degree course, and they're really trying to like drill this idea of like, it's really cool being able to play the guitar fast, but it's even cooler if you can play the guitar fast and like book yourself a tour where you don't lose loads of money. So do this spreadsheet now. So yeah, that's the one he's up to, because Peter actually trained to be a youth worker around the time we were starting the band, like just before we were starting the band. So his odd jobs have tended to be youth work, or occasionally looking after the classroom of excluded kids. I know he's done that one.
Both of which are a little bit like being in a band.
Yeah.
Especially the second one.
yeah, there's a bit of that.
I grew up going to gigs in youth centres, so I can see, that's where people pick up instruments, and especially people who don't go home after school. People who can't or won't or don't want to go home after school. Go to the youth club, pick up an instrument, and I think that's how a lot of people get to play music. And more youth centres in Britain, more instruments and more youth centres in Britain. Is only a positive thing.
Well, it's funny you mentioned that, because the other thing that I do at the moment, a few years ago, my wife set up a project for it was originally for young songwriters. She worked for a writing development agency, and they were setting up young writers groups, and they did one in Newcastle, and they did one in Alnwick, which is a lovely little well-to-do village out in Northumberland. But they were struggling to get people to come to one in Sunderland. And because Sunderland's got a little bit more of a vibrant music scene, she was like, well, how about instead of doing it as just writing, let's do it as songwriting. It's changed a bit over the years, and now it's like her Young Musicians project. And I've been doing some work there, and it's 13 to 19-year-olds, youngsters who just want to like get together and make music together and write songs. And it's amazing watching people at that age find themselves through making music and sharing music together. It's a beautiful, beautiful thing.
It is, and it's almost like kind of hard to talk about it and without feeling too earnest, isn't it? Because I feel like British culture does strangely hold musicians in contempt, despite the Stones and the Beatles being one of our proudest exports. There is at least in my growing up, and I think from a lot of people I've spoken to, you know, when you're growing up and you say you're in a band, most people give you a bit of a side eye, you know, rather than think, oh yeah, great idea, keep on going.
There's an embarrassment about it. You know, I hate like walking around the streets with a guitar. Like, and partly it's because like you probably had those experiences of, you know, the friend who comes round to your house for a party and brings their guitar and plays music at you, and it's horrible and really embarrassing, and you don't want to be that guy.
If you can not be that guy, I always think you don't have to be that guy. It's just that guy's got a lot of airtime on TV shows and films.
Indeed, and if we all have like just enough experience of it to feel like that is true, but it's a tiny part of the story. Britain's standing as an exporter of music is just an incredible thing. You know, it's our thing. It's the thing we do. So it absolutely should be encouraged. And even if it's not about careers, and the good thing about my wife's project is she's not a musician. She's not interested in pushing people into a music career. What she wants is for people at that age who have all sorts of things going in their life. She wants them to have a refuge. She wants them to grow as people, and defining yourself through music for so many teenagers is a massive part of that. It certainly was for me, and for all of the music leaders who work there. Like the continuing theme comes up. It's just like, oh, I wish this existed when I was this age. Yeah,
I think it's kind of unmatched in the way that it's almost another language, isn't it? And it's a language that you can get lost in. And you know, the cliched line is it takes kids off the streets, which is true. And even more than that, it gives people a future. I think music gives people a future, because that person who plays guitar in a band might not play a guitar 10 years later, but they might be a sound person, they might be a producer, they might work at a PA company. All these skills that you learn. I also think about how there's no real apprenticeships. I mean, they do exist. We were at the Marshall factory the other day, and they do apprenticeships, which is great. I don't know of many places in the UK that in music or the arts that do apprenticeships. So what does that mean? It means you leave school at 16 or 18, and if you want to be a creative, if you want to make music or make art, then your options are really kind of difficult, aren't they?
I mean, I think there is a push towards making that happen, but because the music industry, like the wider music industry, is this hodgepodge of sole traders and people who do it in a part-time way, like the skills are so spread out. It's not something which like belongs to an institution, and a lot of the attempts to formalize that take it away from what's good about the fact that it is this patchwork of things. Because quite often the big institutions do not understand themselves what it actually means to be, you know, one of these like founding members of the gig economy. Like we are it. That's our word. Yeah.
I love the idea of, and it's been me, I'm sure it's been you you go in for a job interview at somewhere regular, quote unquote, and you say, I've been in a band and I've booked a tour. And they say, okay. Although saying that, my friend who works in post-production, I think he got his job as a production workflow guy because he said, I've been on tour. I understand what it means to be a driver and book the merch and book the backline. So I think some people get it, but generally speaking, people don't really understand it. I think it's safe to say.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think I would struggle now, like having had this very long period of not having a real job, to convince someone that I am employable. Even though it's like, well, I do the accounts, I do tour management, I manage personalities, because like when you're leading a band, that's what you've got to do. Got all sorts of technical skills, but finding a way to explain how they might translate to real jobs is probably quite hard.
Yeah. Well, I think now is quite an interesting time because salary jobs are probably not as well paid as they used to be even 10 years ago. I know a lot of big companies are having people as contractors instead of being PAYE or salary. So in a way, because the bigger picture of working for bigger corporations doesn't give you the stability that you'd like, especially with the facts that most people young getting to 30s, 40s now probably couldn't afford a house and the mortgage anyway. Maybe this is the good time because it's like, well, fuck it. Might as well do what you want then.
Indeed. Now, take charge of your own destiny by, for instance, forming a Doors tribute band.
Just to end with, you've said it a few times in this chat, in other times talking about the Fire Doors, that you're not the only band that's experiencing this. It's almost every band, isn't it? It's
very widespread. It's much more widespread than people realize. And if it's not like, we've done something quite specific because it suits our skills, but lots of aspiring artists will also be possibly under a different name, playing on a weekend in your local pub, playing covers instead of their own stuff, because maybe it pays £100.
Yeah. And that's more they're getting paid playing originals.
If you're doing support slots because you're at that stage where you're trying to build up an audience, I mean, still the standard fees for support bands are like £50, £100. If you're lucky, 150 or 200. And that's been the same for my entire career. You're a long way in the hole, like trying to get to this point where it's viable.
What do you think the immediate future for bands is? It's not going to change immediately, is it? I'm sort of answering my own question there, but it's just going to roll on and people will talk about it more.
Fashion will change, and the fashion that we have at the moment, which is, for mega gigs, for spending £150 on a ticket to a stadium show, something will come up underneath that, which just seems much cooler than doing that, as it has in the past, but maybe, not in this way. Yeah, I think my theory is that what's happened in the music industry is that things have become very, very, very efficient. The making of palatable music is very efficient. The selling of that music, the distribution of that music is very, very, very efficient now. But it means that like a lot of it is just super generic. Your experience is super generic. Mm-hmm. And that means that eventually young music listeners will want something different.
Are you thinking about that? You've got your November tour coming up, the 20th anniversary for the debut record. That you're going on tour in November around the UK. Are you thinking about this when you're thinking, okay, how do we make it different?
Our show in November is going to be different because we're going to do music we haven't played for 20 years, music which was incredibly impractical to play. And gradually, one of the things that Field Music have done is we've got more sensible about what actually can be translated live. This is us going back to when we had no sense of that. First two records are just really difficult, really, really odd, intrinsically odd music. So for us, this is like a very rare occasion of looking back, but yeah, like facing up to the same challenges we gave up on. 15 years ago.
Are you a better player than you were then? Are you relearning these songs a bit quicker?
Yeah, miles better players, miles better singers, much more comfortable on stage than we were then. But it's also just nice to remember that weird person I was then and embrace that. And then we'll see. You know, we have no warm-up shows. We're just gonna see what happens. I just
want to look up the tour dates.
We are playing at the Brudenell Social Club, I think, on the 7th of November.
Yeah,
Islington Assembly Hall on the 8th, and then the week after that we play at the Fire Station in Sunderland.
Now, I don't know the Fire Station in Sunderland, but the Brood especially and Islington Assembly Hall, they're both beautiful venues, aren't they?
Yeah, I mean, I think the Brood's just like the best small venue there is. I absolutely love it. We've had a couple of good gigs at Islington Assembly Hall. It's probably the right size for us, I think.
Yeah. I like the wood in there. I like sort of the tall stage. Almost like the sort of, it's like assembly in a school, isn't it? It's like in a nice building or something.
It's a beautiful building. It does have a kind of resonance, just flat of G sharp, which
really?
Is tricky if you've got a lot of songs in G.
I didn't know buildings or rooms had resonances in a note.
I mean,
or are you joking?
No, absolutely not joking. I wish I was joking. All venues will have like resonances that are present, but you mostly wouldn't notice.
Wow, I've learned something new today.
Yeah, so if my memory serves me correctly, it's just flat of G sharp in Islington Assembly Hall.
Wow.
So
that's why I always get a little bit on edge when I go there.
Maybe. Never know.
Lovely to chat, David.
Thanks,
I'll be at that Islington Assembly show. I've loved your records in past. Orion on the Street, especially that particular song, was really my soundtrack whenever it came out. Was it 2 years ago or something?
Yeah, might have been 2021. Great. It's a great song. It's in G sharp actually, so we should play that one at Islington Assembly.
Please do. Just to end with, I'm a big fan of the work fuck up, the work gaff, because I mentioned earlier, but you know, it is playing in bands is fertile ground for odd jobs, and I think what comes out of doing sort of precarious, short-lived part-time jobs is that you end up sort of, you know, crashing the delivery car, causing your boss a lot of money, you know, just generally messing it up. And I'm a big fan of the Schadenfreude that comes from that, basically. And I'm putting you on the spot here, but do you have a particular memory of an odd job that is a day that you'd rather not live again?
The worst ones for me were before doing a band, when I was at university and I was trying to make ends meet by doing some like personal tuition. You know, I'm very good at maths. Mm-hmm. There's lots of school-age children who need a bit of help with maths.
I would have needed that, yeah.
But because it was before I learned how to drive, I spent so much time on buses around the northeast of England trying to get to places in order to give this like 45-minute lesson to some teenager who really did not want to be doing it. So yeah, there would have just been loads where I was like, where I turned up sheepishly 10 minutes late because of a bus, doing this job that I hated because, well, I mean, someone who's really good at maths should not teach maths because I find it easy.
Yeah.
I can't explain it to someone who's finding it hard. I'm terrible at that. And then, you know, basically having to like, you know, beg this teenager's parents for my like £18 or whatever it was. Oh God!
Humbling.
Very, and really put me off the idea of ever teaching. Oh dear. Sorry, not specific. I mean,
no, that's a good one. I enjoy it.
I've blocked them all out of my mind.
That's the truth. That should be the way. You block it all out. Cheers for watching. This is 101 Part-Time Jobs. You can find us on Apple, Spotify, and all podcast apps. We've done interviews with Aurora, Kneecap, Idols, Lauren Maybury of Churches, and loads more. So tap into 101 Part-Time Jobs on Spotify, Apple, and all podcast apps. Welcome along to 101 Part-Time Jobs. Every single one of our episodes is available ad-free at our Patreon, patreon.com/101 Part-Time Jobs. I know that there are all these messages trying to sell you things that you may or may not want. So for £4 a month, that's around $5.50 US, you can get over 450 of our episodes and every single one in the future, featuring all the brilliant guests that we have week in, week out, completely ad-free. You can head to patreon.com/101 Part-Time Jobs, get all your episodes bother free, and you support us directly. Cheers.